Access to abortion should be made even easier in the Republic of Ireland, according to a new Government Commission report. The 2018 Abortion Act repealed the Republic's pro-life laws, but did retain some legal safeguards for the unborn. But a review led by barrister Marie O'Shea has made recommendations including scrapping the current 3-day reflection period and recruiting more pro-abortion GPs. Well, with me now is Sile Quinlan of the Pro-Life Campaign. Sile, what's your response to this report?
Thank you, Kieran, for having me on today. Well, I suppose we were extremely concerned in the Pro-Life Campaign about this three-year review and the report. Just, I suppose, to explain to some of your listeners who may not be aware, in 2018, when the abortion legislation was voted on, many promises were made. We were promised that abortion would be a rare thing, and yet here we are a few short years later with a report that has just landed, which is basically the objective of the report has to be, and could not be considered in any other way, has to be to dramatically increase the abortion numbers in this country. It's a very, very extreme set of proposals, in no way reflecting many people that voted yes to introduce abortion into Ireland, but thought so they were doing so based on promises and based on the fact that abortion would be a rare thing.
Because there's been some discussion recently, hasn't there, Sile, in the Dáil, which says, well, these are what the numbers are, and really we sort of need to go further. So far from being a rare occurrence, it does seem to be that there's this desire from some anyway to increase abortion numbers, and this report seems to feed into that narrative, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. And to put it into context, this report, prior to it, the government were only speaking to extreme pro-abortion campaigners, and the report is an indication of that. So what the report is calling for is operational changes to the law, but also legislative changes to the law. So some of the key changes that they're recommending are around the 3-day reflection period, which was promised during the 2018 referendum, which essentially is a life-saving piece of the legislation, where a woman has 3 days to reflect before returning to the GP to receive the abortion medication. And yet the report is actually recommending that would be completely scrapped. They're also, a very strong feature of the report is attacking conscientious objection. So any doctors or nurses or any medical staff that would be working in this area are going to be under considerable pressure. And we would have absolutely grave concerns around the language in the report, language around the fact that, hospitals that are not currently participating, that those hospitals, for instance, would suddenly see themselves receiving less funding. Areas around recruitment, that there would be positive discrimination, and that essentially if you're not prepared to take part in life-ending procedures, that you may not apply for the job. So we'll be deeply concerned around some of the language around the conscientious objection and recommendations. Another area which many people would find quite shocking is a recommendation to decriminalise abortion entirely. I mean, your listeners will be aware that abortion is still illegal in the UK for many circumstances. So in effect, by decriminalising abortion, you are essentially removing any barriers, and with the potential of abortion right up to birth for any reason given. The report also had a lot of errors, which many people might find really very shocking, considering this was government organised report. Two glaring errors in the report were the fact that the abortion numbers were underreported by almost 40%. We've had, since the abortion laws came into effect, almost 30,000 abortions, and yet the report ignored the abortion figures from last year, which was 8,500 abortions. And it also ignored the fact that we had actually 2,000 abortions unaccounted for in 2021. There was a discrepancy between the number of abortions that GPs invoiced for, essentially, and reported. And another glaring error that was in the report, which has really been used as the impetus to argue to remove the 3-day waiting period, was the fact that the report cited a very small study that was carried out by START, which are a group of basically pro-choice doctors who carried out research on a very small sample of women. And the outcome of that research was that only 2% of women used the 3-day waiting period and that didn't return, okay? But the report actually ignored the HSE, that's the health, the Department of Health, government figures, and they ignored those government figures based over a 3-year period, which with a much greater sample carried out, which indicated the figure was actually 17%. So that's 3,951 women who availed of the 3-day waiting period. Now, some of those may have gone on to miscarry, etc., but we know that there are thousands of women in Ireland today that have babies alive today because of the 3-day waiting period. That's women today that are looking down at a baby in their arms, or maybe a toddler that's crawling across the floor. And those women are being ignored, and those lives saved are being ignored. And very sadly, the issue of pain relief, which we have brought up time and time again for babies undergoing a late-term abortion, that got exactly 3 lines in the report, completely dismissed as an issue. So absolutely, we would have grave concerns about this report.
This is going to go into committee now, isn't it, Sheila? So what's your expectations that some of these issues might be resolved there?
Well, the Taoiseach himself, Leo Varadkar, and other government ministers, some have indicated reservations around some of the legislative change, particularly around the 3-day wait.
Yeah, Leo Varadkar's on record saying that, isn't he?
Yes, and I mean, many of these people campaigned on the issue in 2018. They campaigned that the 3-day wait, would put in some measure of I suppose, control and helping to maintain the abortion numbers. But yes, it's going to go to a health committee. The government has already indicated that many of the operational changes around conscientious objection, recruiting more GPs to provide abortion, etc., that they're planning on rolling those objectives out immediately. But legislative change is another issue. The government is going to put all of this to the health committee, and we would be deeply concerned about that process itself. So next steps for us, it is very, very important that the pro-life community in Ireland stands very united and strong and makes their voices heard against these extreme abortion laws that are being proposed. We're responding. We will certainly respond with vigour. So I would really encourage people. We're having a big march in Dublin on Bank Holiday Monday. That's the 1st of May in 2 p.m. in Dublin. We'll be marching from Stephen's Green to Leinster House. And I would really encourage people from all over the country to come to Dublin on Bank Holiday Monday for our March for Life. For more information, if you want, you can go to marchforlife.ie.
Sheila Quinlan of the Pro-Life Campaign, thank you very much indeed for your time. Thanks so much.
Many thanks, Kieran.